name is Daniel. I live in London at Mayfair.
Not a very confident first echo out through the darkened corridors and spaces of this massive castle. I barely remember my name or where I live, stumbling along through the halls towards a goal so distant in recollection that it might as well be fiction. I can only hope that my story gets out, but if you're hearing this now, then the obvious conclusion would be that it has. Wait, you can hear me? How? I wrote this down! Paper doesn't speak? Or are you reading my mind? I'm so confused. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Just breathe. At least I remember my name. Now don't panic, Daryl. We'll get back home to Lisbon in no time. Well, guess I passed out again. I pull myself up off the floor and listen to the sounds of torrential rain on the window. In the next hall, a heavy wooden door opens of its own volition, which is both odd and spooky. But there are no windows in there, so it wasn't a crosswind. There are tinder boxes everywhere. Feels like every 5 feet I find another metal canister and scoop, picked up a tinder box. I follow the halls around and this strange trail of what looks like pink paint. I hear the sounds of screaming and torture coming from below. Either someone was unpleasantly surprised by the pink renovations going on, or something else pretty awful is happening. Probably a good time to point out that I'm deathly afraid of the dark to the point of being driven to insanity unless I can get this fucking candle turned on. Okay. Also good to point out that seeing doors opening on their own or any other strange behavior also drives me to the limits of my sanity. But it's okay. As I said before, my name is David, and I'm holding on to what little sanity I have until I get back home to Lyon. But I'll have to press onwards for now. In the old archives, I found a lantern on the ground, which should help tremendously with the whole dark part of this dark descent, as long as I can find enough oil and fewer of these useless damn tinderboxes. There's also a letter up ahead that someone named Daniel wrote for themselves, which seems to indicate that they drank something that wiped their memory. Oh well, it's not addressed to Darcy, so it's obviously not meant for me. It suggests that Daniel has a purpose here, to find Alexander of Brennenburg in the inner sanctum and kill him, because he's old and weak and won't be able to defend himself. Sounds pretty predatory. Glad I'm not such a psycho. One thing to be wary of though is apparently a living nightmare is here in the castle chasing him. I'll do my best to stay out of their way. As I reach the entrance hall, I get faint flickers of memory, almost like flashbacks, and I remember my first arrival at Brennenburg Castle with Alexander of Brennenburg. He tells me that to reach the inner sanctum, we must go through the refinery. He calls me Daniel. Oh, shit. I am the psycho, and that nightmare thing must be chasing me. I haven't seen anything yet, but there are definitely lots of strange noises everywhere. Scratching, a woman screaming, things banging. Some of it is the castle falling apart, but others I shudder to think. Pages of a diary I wrote during an expedition to Algeria detail entering an old temple and finding a glowing blue orb deep within. Upon touching it, I had visions of an alien landscape before waking to the feeling of my fellow explorers dragging me out of the cavern. Passing through a small library, I recall a flashback of a book puzzle lock that opens the office nearby. Pulling on the books and entering the office, I find a key on the desk. For some reason, I know it's a key to the wine cellar, even though I have no memory of absolutely anything else, and the key isn't labeled in any way whatsoever. Guess I'll just head to the wine cellar to verify my insanity then. As I enter a large hall, I hear a noise and catch a very brief glimpse of what looks like a person entering a distant passage. I've read horror books before. I ain't going that way. Heading back towards the other door I entered previously, I see the cause of the sound I heard before. The ceiling had collapsed and oh god, what the hell? I run back to the main hall from before, which is now covered in weird fleshy bits that hurt me when I touch them. This place is messed up. I just need to find this inner sanctum, take out Brennenburg like I asked myself to, and get the hell out of here. I unlock the wine cellar and head down. One room later, as I bend over to pick up a bottle, the ceiling by the door collapses and I get barreled over by a barrel. I come to, who knows how long later, and with a pounding headache, I clear the debris away from the door. Seems Alexander hired a bunch of goons to kidnap people for him, for as yet unknown reasons, and then fed all the goons poisoned wine, which killed them all. Lovely party. I collected an assortment of various bottles of chemicals down here and took them back up to the laboratory near the entrance to the wine cellar, passing by some more fleshy bits that had grown in the main hall. It seems somebody was doing experiments with these chemicals to try and make something called vitae, but it wasn't working. The recipe they provided, however, did formulate a very powerful acid, so I figured, why not? And I cooked up some acid. As I did, I heard the stairway just outside collapse, but I was quickly able to build an impromptu ramp with some of the rubble. Even more fleshy bits in the hall.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
I was able to use the acid I had cooked to burn away some of the fleshy bits and make my way into the refinery. Closing in on the inner sanctum, and soon it'll be tick-tock murder o'clock, because I apparently am all down for taking out frail old men now. Kinda wishing I still thought I was Daryl. Down in the refinery, a creepy big smile burlap sack head looking thingy was shambling about. I wonder if this is that living nightmare past Daniel warned me about. Better hide from it like he suggested, since there was no way to kill it apparently. There are fleshy bits all over the walls down here, as well as bones, and room after room that look almost identical. It's almost as if whoever built this place wanted me to get lost, both literally and figuratively. There are more of my diary entries down here discussing the orb I found and how the pieces seem to change shape very subtly, to the point I couldn't piece the orb back together. I found a hatch with a door on it connected to a pulley, cleared out a stick jamming the thing, and then opened it up and hopped down, at which point something screamed at me. It must have been the monster's secret hatch, and he wasn't happy about me entering his tunnel without his permission. Simple rule for life: always get consent before you enter someone's tunnel. Turns out though, it was just some archives in a cellar. Then it turns out further that the floor flooded and there's an invisible angry monster creature stomping around down here if I step in his water. Simple rule for life: expect to get angrily slapped if you touch the water in a strange monster's tunnel. I navigate the halls by leapfrogging from box to box, until I run out of boxes. Now I have to run, being chased out of the tunnel with the monster in close pursuit, dodging fleshy bits all the way out. Simple rule for life: when getting chased out of a strange monster's tunnel that you entered without permission, don't stop to touch the fleshy bits on your way out. After some distance, I escape and enter the back hall. Why are you giggling? There is a very odd fountain in here of what looks like a baby-headed centipede with woman's legs at the other end. No thanks. Stepping away from Madame Centibebe, I look through the surrounding rooms and see what I can find. Various notes about other orbs being found in the world, one by a man named Heinrich Agrippa, and other notes about learning how to torture humans to cause them to experience more terror and produce some form of energy because of it. And finally, some instructions and parts to repair an elevator back here that will take me down to the inner sanctum. I head down to the only room left, storage, to continue my search for the rest of the parts I need. Various tasks and items to combine down here. Some parts for a drill, which I use to get some explosive fluid out of a few barrels, and then I use that explosive fluid to blow up some rubble blocking my way. I head into the next hall. Nope! Not that hall. The next one. In here, I find a room with chains and a torch that is certainly not traditional fire. After finding the last of the parts and overcoming a sudden and unexpected craving for Milky Way's candy, the flappy smile baghead beast emerges again and chases me back to the back hall. It used to be nice in here, but now there are fleshy bits in here too, and Madame Centibebe is spitting out blood. Extra no thanks now. I entered the machine room and worked my way through the pipes and halls and repaired the machines based on the instruction notes I've found lying around. Along with some cogs to fix the machine, I found more diary entries detailing that whatever attacked me in Algeria seems to have followed me back to London and was killing everybody I interacted with. But I'd received a letter from a mysterious Baron of Brennenburg that he knew what hunted me and that he could protect me. I guess that explains how I got here. Anyway, with the elevator motor now powered, I head back to the back hall to use it, passing what? You guessed it, fleshy bits! The elevator trip was quick and downward, and there were more fleshy bits in the shaft. Stop giggling. And of course it crashed right at the bottom, so no way of using it to get back up. The next hallways seem to be some form of prison that Alexander was using to hold people, but a flashback seems to indicate that I was working for him down here. Doing what? I'm not sure yet. I find an escape tunnel one of the prisoners had dug and worked my way through. These prison blocks are an absolute maze. I'm just hunting through rooms and hoping I find a key or something. Not that! Great. Now that creature is down here with me. As I sit and hide from it, I realize that crunching noise I keep hearing is my teeth grinding and chattering. So that's always good. I find more diaries about arriving at Brennenburg Castle and how Alexander taught me about the shadow chasing me slowly to recover the orb, killing everyone in its path to get to it, and that things could be done to stop it. At last I find some acid in a vat in what looks like a storeroom, and take it with me to melt and chisel open an old rusty padlock. This gets me into the cistern area. There's water on the ground, and of course, the invisible slapping creature that was in the last flooded room. The new diary entries I find as I work my way around the cistern show that Alexander was helping me prepare for a ritual in the inner sanctum that would banish the orb's shadow. I gather parts to rebuild another machine in the cistern to pump water out of the sewers below, and in the morgue I siphon some blood from the side of a dead guy's head and inject it into myself. Why? Excellent question! Because I read it in a note nearby that his blood contains a vaccine that makes me immune to the deadly fungus growing in the sewers, and I must pass through them safely. I work through the sewers, jamming a water wheel I pass underneath, and sneak my way around the idiot creeper that's chasing me, and climb up a ladder to escape. Another diary entry explains that the shadow warding ritual Alexander set up for me to take part in was pretty much just me torturing and murdering a guy. Apparently, the spilled blood of another wards off and delays the shadow. Okay. Suddenly, I come across a frail old man strung up in an alcove off the hall. I wasn't in the inner sanctum yet, but could this be Alexander? No, but who he told me he was shocked me. Agrippa, the same man from the diary previously that had been hunting for orbs in the 16th century. How could he still be alive? He said that Alexander had taken his orb and broken it long ago, but would be dangerous with the orb that I had brought him. I told him how I had repaired mine, and he said I might be able to do the same with the shards of his old orb. Alexander was using the shards as torture devices, as to touch them causes instant madness. I should search the choir and the transept for them. He also asked me to look for a potion from a Johann Weyer that would free him from his husk. No problem, old man. I wouldn't want to be stuck in a husk either. I'll be back in 2 shakes of a crusty husk. As I proceed in my search, I hear the voice of Alexander in my head. Seems he's not happy with me helping Agrippa, and less happy about me coming to kill him. Totally fair, but at this point, after everything I've seen, your feelings count for bupkis. More torture notes. It seems like inducing terror in people fills their blood with vitae, which Alexander has been trying to collect. He also has some form of drink that causes amnesia, so that he can re-inflict terror anew with each torture session. Sadistic. Seems Alexander did some pretty disgusting things down here, albeit to some pretty shady criminals, but still. I find a note with the ingredients for Weyer's potion for Agrippa, so I note them down and keep a lookout on my search. After clearing all the rooms in the transept and finding some orb pieces and ingredients, I head to the choir and do the same. But what I learn in there sickens me to my core. I've been the one torturing the prisoners, one after another, over and over, in an attempt to keep the shadow at bay, offerings to the guardian of the orb. No wonder I wanted to forget. I'd drink instant memory go bye-bye juice if I was in that situation as well. What am I talking about? I was in that situation. No amount of looking at cute puppies was going to bleach that from my mind. The main hall of the choir is a massive and dusty chamber, and my old smiley limping murder shadow is in here too. Great. I do my best to fumble around and find the remaining orb pieces and ingredients in the torture chambers. I headed through another door after grabbing everything, but I was captured by a bunch of creatures and thrown in a prison cell. I was able to escape quickly, however, by collapsing the wall next to me and leaving out the unlocked adjacent cell. The shadow really didn't like this and started chasing me through the hallways. Luckily, it was a pretty straight shot.
This felt like running.
I made my way back to where Agrippa was held, and in a nearby lab I brewed Weyer's tonic for him. After I fed it to him, he told me to grab a nearby saw and cut off his head, and take it with me. Apparently the tonic would prevent him from dying. So I did. Now I have his head in my pocket. I better make sure I keep a firm Agrippa of it, huh? Sorry. Time and place, I know. I can hear the screams of the shadow louder and louder. It really isn't happy that I'm taking Agrippa with me to the inner sanctum. I enter the same large chamber where I was captured before, but this time I'm able to sneak through. I break some machine in a side room and proceed over the bridges to a tunnel arcing with electricity. There is a pedestal to the left in which I've pieced together the orb, and the tunnel clears, zapping the orb out of existence with it. I pass through the tunnel and reach the door to the inner sanctum as the shadow screams all around in ethereal anger. I find one final diary entry where I finally come to grips that Alexander has played me all along, using me to torture and murder others while he slowly builds power from my orb. I vow to kill him. He's not just any weak, frail old man any longer. I complete some form of blood ritual to open the orb chamber gates and dodge more fleshy bits as I head inside. I find Alexander in here, as well as some glowing beams and several orbs. Sure, he's weak and frail looking, but he can float. But honestly, did he have to be naked? Agrippa is like 300 years old, yet he managed to keep Agrippa his loincloth. Anyway, yeah, Alexander's fleshy bits, I'll stop talking about it. Alexander is attempting to open a portal to another world, his old world, that he was banished from hundreds of years ago. He's been trying to break back in ever since, but I have one last chance to thwart his plans. As the portal opens, I yeet Agrippa's head through the portal first. Alexander screams in anger that I've ruined everything, as the portal closes without him being able to pass through, and then we both seem to die. From the blackness I see before me, I hear the voice of Agrippa, pleading with Ware to help me, and telling me that everything will be alright, as the world fades into a brilliant white light. Thanks so much for watching, as always guys. For those of you that made it to the end of the video, really super appreciate you. Please leave a like if you've made it this far, I really appreciate that and it really helps out a lot, and also consider leaving a comment about your thoughts or other videos you'd like to see, and consider dropping a subscribe as well. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video, but as always my friends, until the next video, be legendary.